In this video, I want to show you how to solve quadratic equations by factorization. So for you to understand this method very well, you have to watch a video that I posted on factorization of quadratic expressions. Right, so let's move on to our first example. Right, solve the equation x minus 5 factor of x plus 2 is equals to 0. Right, in this case we have two factors. We have this factor in the brackets, which is a factor of this one, x plus 2 in the bracket as well, and the product is 0. There's no way we can get 0 after multiplying non-zero factors. So we are saying there's a possibility that the first factor is 0, or the second factor is 0, such that the second factor by this first factor we get 0, or the first factor by this one with this 0 we get 0, or both are zeros. But that won't help us. If we are saying both are zeros, then that one is useless. So we are going to do it this way. We are not very sure, but there's a possibility that x minus 5 is equals to 0 in such a way that if we substitute 0 for x minus 5, it will be x is 0 by x plus 2, and we get 0. Or x plus 2 is 0. So mathematically we can write that as either x minus 5 is equals to 0 or x plus 2 is equal to 0. So we are saying if x minus 5 is equals to 0, then x is equals to 5. We are just solving this equation. Let's take this minus 5 to the right hand side, at the same time taking this 2 to the other side, and we get x is equal to 5 or minus 2. So we have solved the quadratic equation. Right, let's move on to our next example, where we are saying x factor of x minus 12 is equals to 0. Right, there is a possibility that one of the factors is either x is equal to 0 or x minus 12 is equals to 0, or both. So we are saying we can write this either x is equals to 0 or x minus 12 is equals to 0. If it is the case that x minus 12 is equals to 0, that means x is equals to 12. We are taking this minus 12 to the right hand side, and we'll get positive 12. So our answers are x is equals to 0 or 12. And if you substitute these values back into this equation, you will definitely get this 0. Right, let's move on to an advanced question. Right, in this case, this one is in an expanded form. This left hand side is in expanded form. So we have to factorize this one first, so that we will equate the factors to 0. So I will take you through the process of factorizing the quadratic expression. For those who haven't watched that video on factorization of quadratic expressions, right, what we simply do is we rewrite this equation as it is, then we drop the squared part, this term x squared, this term in x squared, we drop it as it is. We do nothing to it, just drop it as it is. Then we also drop this part as it is, drop this plus 6 is equals to 0, like this. Right, then the next thing is now to express this 5 as a sum of two terms. We want to express this 5 as a sum of two terms. Right, so we don't just put two terms there. We find them this way. We multiply the term in x squared by the constant. That's always the case. The term in x squared and the constant. So if we multiply these two, we get 6x squared, like this. Right, now we are now looking for the factors of 6x squared. The factors of 6x squared, whose sum is 5x. Two numbers which when multiplied give us 6x squared, but when added give us 5x. And these numbers are 3x and 2x. So instead of writing 5x, we are going to add 3x and 2x. Since the sum is 5x, we are saying 3x plus 2x is equal to 5x. At the same time, 3x multiplied by 2x will give us 6x squared. Right, now that we have two more terms, making a total of 4 terms, we can now safely factorize by grouping. Right, the first two, the highest common factor on the first two is x. So if we check out x there, we remain with x plus 3 in the brackets. Likewise, these last two terms, we are going to take out the highest common factor, which is 2. If we take out 2, we remain with x plus 3 in the brackets as well. So we remain with this expression. Right, then after that, if you look at this expression, we now have this common factor, x plus 3, x plus 3. So we're going to take out that x plus 3, remain with x plus 2 in the other brackets like this. Right, remember, this is equal to 0. We now have two factors which are multiplying each other, and the product is 0. So we are saying either x plus 2 is 0 in such a way that this is 0 multiplying x plus 3 will give us 0, or x plus 3 is equal to 0 in such a way that that is 0 by x plus 2 will give us this 0. So it's either x plus 2 is equal to 0 or x plus 3 is equal to 0. Now solving this simple linear equations by simply taking 2 to the other side, at the same time taking this 3 to the other side, we remain with x is equal to, find out that x is equal to minus 2 or minus 3. Right, let's now move on to our fourth example. Obviously, the first thing is to factorize the left hand side completely. Right, so in this case, the factors, our factors are minus 9 and 8, and they are both in terms of x. So the new terms that we are going to add, instead of writing this minus x, we are going to rewrite this minus x as minus 9x plus 8x like this. And if we factorize this by grouping, if we check out x here, we remain with x minus 9. And if we factorize the last two here, if we check out 8 there, we remain with x minus 9, and this is equal to 0. So we remain with something like this. Factorizing further, taking out x minus 9, we remain with x plus 8 in the other brackets. So it will be x minus 9 factor of x plus 8, which is equal to 0. Right, having two factors, either the first factor is 0 or the second factor is 0, or both are zeros. So we're going to write these two equations, then solving them. Taking minus 9 to the other side is now plus 9. Taking plus 8 to the other side is now minus 8. So our roots are minus 8 and 9. So x is equal to 9 or minus 8. Right, let's move on to our last example, the fifth one. Likewise, we are going to factorize the left hand side completely. Then we equate the factors to 0. Right, in this case, if we multiply 3x squared by minus 8, we get minus 24x squared. And the factors of minus 24x squared, whose sum is minus 5x, are 3x and minus 8x. And by grouping, if we factorize this by grouping, if we check out 3x there, we remain with x plus 1. Right, if we take out minus 8 here, we remain with x plus 1 in the brackets as well. So we remain with something like this. Right, then from there, this one is now a common factor. Let's take out x plus 1. We remain with 3x minus 8 like this. Now that we have two factors and the product is 0, we are now saying either the first factor is 0 or the second factor is 0. So we are now equating the first factor to 0, at the same time equating the second factor to 0, and solving these two simple linear equations. We are taking minus 8 to the other side, then we divide by 3, we get 2 and 2/3. At the same time taking plus 1 to the other side to get minus 1. Right, so these are our answers. Right, now practice with these questions. And here are the answers. Thank you very much for watching. Please don't forget to subscribe to Tech Math Tutorials.